My name is Charles Hartford. I'm a 1989 graduate of the United States Military Academy, and I served 20 years plus in the United States Army and retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2009. I had 5 combat deployments most recently to Iraq and Afghanistan, other deployments earlier in my career from that. Katie, my role during that night on April the 1st, 2003 was to be the ground assault commander for some special operations units, and my role was to get that element on the ground from our camp to the objective where we knew she was going to be held, which was a hospital, and then back. That was the extent of my role, was simply to get them safely there, secure the compound around the hospital, and allow other special operations forces to extract her and get her into good medical care, and then get them everybody back. Very, very good question. About 3 days before, I was on another mission in the south of Iraq, and we heard, I came off of that mission, and it was early morning, and I recall that one of our senior NCOs handed me a really warm lemon Pepsi, the funny things that you remember, and he said, there's a mission waiting, you need to go to the headquarters, and so I checked into the tent with my warm lemon Pepsi, and that's the first time that I heard the name, Jessica Lynch, and I learned a few things. One, she had the same blood type as me, be positive, which is a good life motto, by the way, be positive. She was alive, we had proof of life, and we knew that she was being held in a compound in this hospital. The other thing that we knew was there were between 50 and 75 Iraqis using the hospital as a place to plan, so there were Iraqi soldiers in the area. And to give you some context, Al-Nasiriyah in the south of Iraq is a city of well over 1 million people. This is not a small little village. It's a very well-developed, populated area. Okay, so that's what I knew on a couple nights before. Once we knew that, then we began planning in earnest and trying to figure out exactly what we would need to do to get her safely out of there. So I spent that time all in about 39 hours without sleep from the time that I learned about her until I flew into another airfield close by the hospital, and we flew the rest of my unit up, and all the leadership began really planning in earnest with our other units that were in the area.
Yeah.
It took a long time to plan, all right? We did not know how we were going to approach the objective. It took some time in thinking through how we would approach that particular hospital. In execution, I would tell you, these are expert professional soldiers, sailors, airmen, and all the services are represented in the rescue of this. My role was very, very small. We could not have rehearsed it as well as we executed it on the very first go. From the very time when I radioed my commander to say we were ready to launch, and we started executing the mission to go to the hospital, to the time when Jessica Lynch was in a helicopter, and there is videotape available if you take a look and see her being put into a helicopter, being found by special operations guys in the second room on the right of the second floor of the hospital, was 36 whole minutes. Okay, so very, very quick, in and out, which is very common for a special operations mission. Okay, you want to plan and have contingencies should something go wrong, and you want to execute and use the element of surprise. Very common that you're going to do so in the middle of the night or in periods of darkness, and that's exactly what happened in this case. The difficult part was finding out that there were American remains that had been buried in a soccer field just next to the hospital, and we did not know how many exactly Americans had been killed and were buried. When we were looking inside the hospital with all the power off, we looked inside the morgue, and I don't mean to be grotesque here, but it's pitch black, and we're using night optical devices, and it's difficult to tell the color of skin when everything is kind of hues of green. Yeah. Okay, and we found several bodies in the morgue that were obviously tortured, hands bound behind their back, hands bound behind back and tied to their feet, and we didn't know with 2 of these if they were American or not. And so we recovered those. The difficult part was we were not ready. We were not prepared because we didn't know until I got to a holding area before we went into the hospital that there were going to be American remains located close by. And you know, we try not to leave anybody behind. And so for 4.5 hours, Rangers dug by hand American remains out of the ground to recover those bodies. And we were approaching daylight by the time that was complete. I was under a bit of pressure to make sure that the second part of my job was to get everybody from the objective, that hospital, back out of harm's way. And where darkness is your friend, daylight can be your enemy. And so we were under a bit of pressure to get that done quickly and safely, but also to get done so that they could release the news that we had successfully rescued an American POW. On that score, I would just say that was because they wanted to release the news because it was a successful mission. Yeah. There was nothing in the planning of this. Believe me, you're talking about a pretty professional, cynical bunch of people. Yeah. There's nobody that would have participated in this mission had they not known a few things. One, she was an American, and she was alive. There was no undue pressure. I know that sometimes, I guess there were press reports that there was some pressure, political pressure, to say that we need a big win here when the war was looking like it was going badly. At our level, there was no consideration of that whatsoever. We knew that we had an American. She was alive. Did not matter her gender, race, color, creed, origin, certainly not her rank. What mattered is she was American. Yeah. And you have over 1,200 people that are willing to put their lives in harm's way.